They called it the Purge broadcast. I was sitting in my apartment in Chicago, nursing a warm beer, watching the news ticker crawl across a muted screen when the first screams started echoing through every device, phones, TVs, tablets, all hijacked by the same feed. No one knew what was happening at first. The footage was crystal clear. Too clear. A stadium-sized holding pen full of people. Mothers, old men, kids, packed in like cattle, trembling under fluorescent blue lights. And then the voice came. Cold, translated automatically across all languages. This is justice. This is balance. This is retribution for the infection of your kind. 10 million humans, rounded up in the dark of night from cities across Earth's major continents. New York, Lagos, Mumbai, Tokyo, Rio. No warning, no resistance. Our satellites never caught a damn thing. The bastards were ghosts. Ghosts with tech we couldn't dream of. And they had been watching. What followed on that broadcast was something no one should have had to see. No cuts, no edits, just raw, unfiltered execution, mass vaporization, screams smothered in plasma, bodies reduced to ash while the camera zoomed in like it was some twisted alien reality show. They even panned to the children. Deliberately. My brother was in that pen. I knew his face. He had 2 little girls, both gone now. They were in New York for his anniversary. We had spoken the day before. He joked about how his wife made him carry around a diaper bag. That voice in his throat when he laughed. That voice still haunts me. Because 12 hours later, I watched his face melt on an alien screen while the galaxy watched and did nothing. The UN scrambled, of course. There were emergency meetings, hollow speeches, demands for answers. But no one came forward. No one claimed responsibility. The feed was traced to over 17 different planets, each rerouted through alien systems we didn't understand. They mocked us with our own tech. But Earth doesn't forget. And men like me, we don't forgive. I was part of the Templar Division, officially disbanded after the Martian Accord. Off-the-books ops, ex-military, the kind of unit that doesn't exist on paper. We were ghosts too. But ours bled. After the purge, Command gave us a single directive. Don't negotiate, don't warn, erase. So we built something. We took everything we had, nuclear, quantum, cybernetic, psychotronic, and built a weapon no one thought we'd dare unleash. It wasn't a bomb. Bombs kill. This thing annihilated. We called it Thanatos, the name of death itself. It wasn't just going to end lives. It was going to erase every trace of the bastards who did this. Language, data, culture, everything. Like they were never born. Still, I wasn't ready. Not until I saw her again. Marla, my brother's wife. She hadn't spoken since the broadcast, just sat in a white room hugging the blood-stained unicorn her daughter used to sleep with. I visited once, sat across from her, told her we were doing something about it. She looked up, eyes empty. "Make them scream," she whispered. "Make them beg." That was all I needed. We launched from Titan, black ship under silent thrusters. No flags, no signals. We weren't diplomats. We were judgment. Retribution shaped like steel. We traced the signal back. One planet, one species. They called themselves the Valari, self-proclaimed judges of moral infection. They viewed humanity as chaos incarnate, disease with a pulse, so they thought they'd cure us. But we weren't a disease. We were the damn fever that came before death, and we were coming for them. The ship was silent. Not just quiet. Silent. No chatter. No music. No jokes. Not even breathing loud. Every man on board knew what we were going to do. This wasn't some war about resources or politics. It wasn't even revenge. This was personal. We'd all lost someone. A wife, a son, a friend. Some had nothing left. Others left families behind, knowing damn well this might be one way. But nobody hesitated. Not one man. That's what made the silence sacred. Not fear, but focus. I stood at the main viewing port, staring into the void. The stars looked the same, cold and quiet. I used to think space was beautiful. Now it just looked indifferent, a perfect mirror to what we were about to become. Captain Roar. No, not his name. Can't use that. The captain, call him Stone, stepped beside me. Stone wasn't like the politicians who made speeches about unity and peace after the massacre. He didn't give a damn about posturing. He watched his kid die in that broadcast, and then he signed up to erase the bastards who did it. We're close, he said, eyes fixed ahead. Less than 2 hours now. I nodded. You ready for this, Mason? He asked. I didn't respond at first, just stared at the trajectory marker blinking red on the screen. You think any man's ready to kill a planet? Stone didn't flinch. I think you either kill it or it kills more of us. He walked away. The Valari homeworld wasn't what I expected. You'd think a species capable of coordinating a mass broadcast genocide would live in some hive of violence, or maybe a brutal regime planet full of sharp edges and barbed towers. But no, it was beautiful, lush, bright skies, green oceans, cities like glass sculptures spread across the land, elegant, efficient, pristine. It made me sick. It was the same trick they'd used during First Contact a few decades back. Show us the pretty side, talk like philosophers, promise peace. And while we welcomed them, they were studying us, measuring, calculating, quietly labeling us as a problem to be corrected. When they acted, it was without warning. No declaration, no debate, just that broadcast. 10 million souls gone in minutes. We scanned the planet for signatures, biological clusters, energy hubs, planetary shield arrays. They weren't armed for war. They didn't need to be. They believed themselves untouchable. Philosophers with God complexes. They thought their tech made them invincible. We didn't care about winning. We weren't here to win. We were here to end. Thanatos was already humming in the ship's spine. It wasn't a weapon you fired like a missile. It wasn't even visible to the naked eye. It was data. A virus engineered through AI evolution loops, deep quantum logic, and raw human hatred. Once deployed, it didn't just kill. It rewrote existence. Every system on the planet would be overwritten. Every file corrupted. Every biological organism unraveled. Every cultural trace, every monument, even their spoken language, erased. By the time we were done, the Valari wouldn't just be dead. They'd be forgotten, as if they never existed at all. The crew gathered in the ops bay, a circle of 34 men. Most of us were ex-special forces. The rest were scientists who lost everything. Every man here had dirt under his nails and rage in his chest. We stood while Stone gave the briefing. Simple and brutal. This is a 1-hour op. No landing, no prisoners. We broadcast the same feed they used, full circle. They watched our people burn. Now they watch their end. Some flinched. Not because of doubt, but because it meant becoming what we hated. Say what you need to say now, Stone added. Once this begins, we don't stop. I walked to my bunk, sat on the edge, pulled out my brother's dog tags. I'd kept them since the memorial. They were scorched from the aftermath of New York. He didn't die in the Purge Stadium. He tried to fight back during the abductions. They torched the whole building. I held them in my fist until my knuckles cracked. And then I opened the secure comms link to Earth. I didn't say anything, just hit record. To anyone who finds this, I said, voice low, you should know we didn't do this for glory. We did this because no one else would. We begged the galaxy for justice. They gave us silence. So now we give them silence back. Permanent. I ended the message. uploaded it into the ship's black box. That way, if we never returned, at least someone would know why we became monsters. Launch time. The techs engaged Thanatos. The lights dimmed. The screens flickered with lines of code I couldn't understand. Not because I was dumb, but because this thing was alive. It was changing every second. Learning, adapting, preparing to do what it was designed for, erasure. We opened the broadcast. The same tone that started the purge echoed through the system. This time it was us speaking. But we didn't use translation software. We didn't want to be understood. We wanted them to feel it. Stone spoke the words himself. This is not justice. This is not balance. This is payment. You killed 10 million of ours. Now we erase all of you. Then we deployed the payload. It started slow. Valari comms lit up. Confusion, panic, static. Civilian networks crashed. Military signals blinked out. Their orbital relays went dark one by one. No explosions. Just quiet death. Like a disease spreading through their nervous system. I watched their cities dim from orbit. Lights flickering, then gone. Buildings collapsing under their own weight. Transport systems crashing into one another. Ships falling from the sky like toys. It was horrifying. Beautiful. Righteous. And then came the screams. Our scanners caught audio from emergency frequencies. They were begging for help. Not just from us. From anyone. Pleading with other species. Offering peace, surrender, anything. But no one answered. Because everyone was watching. Just like when we died. We broadcasted it all. Same angles, same slow zooms, same cruelty. We made them feel what we felt. One of our men, Davis, started crying. No shame in it. He lost his daughter. She was 7. He watched her vaporize on that damn screen a year ago. Now he watched the Valari children running through burning streets, and he cried because he remembered what love felt like, and what it turned into. Another man puked in the hallway. He kept going. No one said a word. Stone stared straight at the feed, jaw locked. No blinking. Leave nothing, he said. The AI confirmed. Phase 2 underway. Thanatos had begun cultural erasure. Not just bodies now, data, libraries, archives, memories. Their version of art, history, music, all being rewritten into void. It wasn't death, it was oblivion. Hours passed. No resistance, no saviors, no heroes. They died like ants under a microscope. Somewhere deep in their capital, one of their leaders got a message through. We intercepted it. His voice was cracked, trembling. He asked us to stop. Promised they would pay reparations. Surrender everything. Submit to human law. I played it on loop, then deleted it. When it was over, the planet was dark, not destroyed, empty. Not even dust remained. The system was quiet. Too quiet. We had done it. Stone stood before us again. We go home, he said. Someone whispered, if there's still a home left. The flight back was heavier than the flight in. No cheers, no celebration. We had done something irreversible. Necessary, maybe. But it cost us. It changed us. You could see it in the men's eyes. The weight. The silence felt different now. Before, it was focus. Now, it was aftermath. I sat alone, staring at the blank screen where the Valari broadcast used to play. I thought I'd feel peace, or relief, or closure, but I felt nothing. Until I saw her face again. Marla, my brother's wife. They had shown her the broadcast. She saw everything. I didn't know if she'd smile or spit in my face. She just looked at me through the screen. And for the first time since the massacre, she nodded. Just once. And that was enough. The moment we crossed back into Sol space, the silence was gone. Every frequency lit up. Civilian broadcasts, military channels, galactic relays, all flooding in. Some were screaming, others demanding. Most just whispered the same question over and over. Did Earth really do it? No one believed it at first. That a Class B species like us, still crawling out of our own backyard, still arguing over borders and currencies, could wipe an entire civilization clean off the star map. But the evidence was undeniable. The blackened hole where the Volari system used to be told the truth in a language every species understood. Total erasure. They wanted answers. The Council of Nine, that bloated excuse for interstellar law, sent encrypted messages laced in diplomatic poison, demands for explanation, threats of isolation, vague warnings about the consequences of unilateral violence. Stone didn't respond. Not at first. He just paced the bridge, slow and quiet, watching the stars glide past the viewport. They watched, he finally said. Watched while 10 million of hours were erased on their screens. He turned to us. His voice never rose. It didn't have to. They want peace now? Now they're scared? Let them choke on their fear. The crew didn't cheer. We didn't need to. That nod from Marla still hung in my mind like a stamp across my conscience. We'd done the job. Now the universe wanted to pretend it didn't happen? Too late. By the time we landed on Titan base, Earth had already split in two. Half the population hailed us as saviors, statues, murals, parades. The 34 ghosts, they called us, the men who made the galaxy bleed for its sins. Songs were written, school lessons rewritten. Kids carried our names like badges of fire. The other half? They were terrified. They said we went too far, that we'd become worse than the ones we punished. Intellectuals, peacekeepers, even old veterans, they flooded the nets with debates and warnings about morality, ethics, the soul of humanity, as if those things weren't already burned in the ashes of our children. Me? I didn't feel like a hero. I didn't feel like a monster either. I just felt empty. Then the attacks started. First, it was a mining ship out near Proxima, found drifting, hull torn open like a soda can, no life signs, no black box, just a single phrase carved into the metal. You taught us how to kill. Then came the assassinations. 3 Earth ambassadors, all wiped out in the same hour. 1 on a resort moon. 1 in an interspecies trade hub. 1 at home, in his sleep. No traces left, no claims, just blood. We had cracked the galaxy open. Now it was bleeding, and the sharks were coming in. The Templar division was reactivated. Not officially, still off the books, still shadows. But now, we weren't the only ghosts out there. Other species began forming their own versions. Hunter squads, kill teams, black ships without flags. Retaliation? Maybe. Or maybe they were just scared of what we proved. That humans don't forgive. We got called in by the Defense Directorate within 72 hours. High tower in New Geneva, all chrome and glass. Clean halls that smelled like bleach and fear. The room was filled with suits, not soldiers, politicians, scientists, corporate stakeholders. Stone stood at the front like he didn't give a single damn who they were. You are not authorized to commit genocide, one of them snapped, some senator with soft hands and soft eyes. Stone didn't blink. We didn't ask. You've jeopardized every diplomatic treaty we've built over the last 50 years. Those treaties didn't stop 10 million humans from being slaughtered while you drafted speeches. The room fell silent. A woman from Interstellar Trade leaned forward, hands shaking. You need to understand something, she said quietly. The Volari were connected, deeply, financially, culturally. They were embedded in every major galactic economy. Their erasure has destabilized everything. Stone just crossed his arms. Good. They tried to disband us, strip us of command, seize the ship, shut down Thanatos, bury the evidence. They failed, Because the people didn't want peace anymore. They wanted protection. They wanted fear. They wanted the monsters they'd sent into the dark to keep guarding the gates. So they gave us new orders, reluctantly, bitterly, but they gave them. Find the others. Because it turned out the Volari weren't alone. They weren't just an extremist splinter group. There were others, hidden factions, watching, waiting. One of the clean-suited analysts laid it out like this. The Volari initiated a cleansing protocol. We believe it was a pilot phase. Earth was just the first test. They killed 10 million as a test? I asked, barely keeping my voice steady. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. We left orbit again 3 days later. Same crew, same silence, different mission. Now we weren't just avenging the past. We were hunting the future. Our first target was called Fendari Prime, a lush moon orbiting a gas giant, neutral territory used for diplomacy and science. But we had intel, unconfirmed chatter about cloaked meetings, encrypted data moving off-grid. Someone was hiding something there. We didn't bomb it, not this time. This time we went in quiet. I led a 4-man infiltration unit, no armor, no insignia, just black suits, silenced weapons, and cold eyes. We touched down at night, their night, and moved through the jungle under infrared. The moon was beautiful. Purple skies, trees that glowed, rivers like molten gold. And underneath it all, the rot. We found the compound beneath a false mountain. Volari tech, modified, integrated with foreign systems. That wasn't what scared me. What scared me were the bodies inside. Human bodies, floating in tanks, skin peeled, brains exposed. Some still alive, barely. Hooked into neural link machines, their thoughts being mapped, harvested. "What the hell is this?" Davis whispered. I already knew. They weren't just studying us, they were copying us. We found the files, took what we could, blew the rest. We torched the labs, the machines, the whole damn compound, sent the flames high enough to burn their false mountain to the stars. When the Fendari tried to explain, we didn't wait for it. We left a message in the ash. "Try it again, and you'll vanish next." Back aboard the ship, we decrypted the stolen data. It wasn't just experiments, it was a plan. Earth wasn't the only target. The same cleansing protocol had been initiated on other Class B worlds, less advanced than us, less noisy. Silent disappearances, entire towns gone, whole species wiped while the galaxy played dumb. And behind it all, the same mark, the sigil of purity. Volari doctrine, but older, deeper, religious almost. There was something bigger out there, some network of species who believed in order through extinction. That chaos, life in its rawest, most unpredictable form, was a threat to the galaxy's balance. We were just the beginning. Stone called us into the war room. The table was dark. Holograms flickered above. Stars, systems, target zones. "New objective," he said. "We don't wait for the next broadcast. We find them. We end them." He looked at me. "You in?" I thought of my brother, my nieces, their screams, the silence after. I didn't answer. I just loaded my weapon. That night, I had a dream. I was standing on Earth, watching a sunrise, but there were no people, no sounds, no cities, just ash and wind, and the hollow echo of a planet that had once believed in hope. And in the sky, written in the clouds like blood, "You should have stayed silent." I woke up sweating, went to the armory, and got ready to make someone else dream of ash. The stars looked closer now. It wasn't the ship. It wasn't speed or proximity. It was us. We weren't just watching the galaxy anymore. We were inside it, under its skin, digging like splinters. And it was starting to itch. 3 weeks into the new directive, We'd already burned 2 more facilities to the ground. One was hidden beneath a colony port on Keldor Thread, dressed up like a refugee shelter. They were experimenting on children there. Human children. They'd been taken before the purge. We found 26 bodies. 4 survivors. 1 girl, about 8. Had her tongue removed and her eyelids sewn open. They were using her dreams to simulate human fear responses in artificial Velari clones. She never said a word. Just stared at us while the flames took the lab behind her. Another base, this one orbiting a shattered moon, wasn't even hiding. It was military, armed, protected, run by a species we thought was neutral, the Drivari. Turns out neutrality is just another mask. They fought. We answered. No survivors. Each operation left a scar. Not on the galaxy, on us. You could see it in the way the crew walked. Slower, heavier, eyes hollowing. Some started keeping journals like confessionals. Others got quiet. Not tactical quiet, but broken. It was starting to sink in. We weren't soldiers anymore. We were cleaning up a mess too big to end. And the more we erased, the more enemies rose up behind us. It was during a debrief that Stone gave us the name. We had all gathered in the war room again, the lights dim, air thick with tension. "We've confirmed it," he said, pointing to the hologram. A spiral symbol appeared, made of intersecting lines, sharp, elegant, ancient, the sigil of purity. They've been around longer than us, longer than most of the species we've met, maybe even longer than the Council itself. "What do they want?" someone asked. Stone looked down. "Order." He zoomed in on the hologram, planets marked in red. Not just Earth, not just humans, dozens of systems. They see chaos as a disease, growth, emotion, diversity. It's all infection to them, so they purify it, quietly, systematically. Entire cultures erased, no war, no warning. Just gone. "Why didn't the Council stop it?" "Because they're in on it," I said. I hadn't meant to speak, but it came out like a crack of thunder. Stone didn't deny it. He simply added, "Not all of them, but enough." And then he dropped the real bomb. "We've located one of the founders." The room went still. "He's not on some hidden moon or buried lab. He's living under an alias, posing as a diplomat on Virex Station." Virex Station was the jewel of the mid-ring, a floating city of light, wealth, and lies. A place where species came to trade, negotiate, and pretend they weren't all armed to the teeth. We arrived undercover, fake ident tags, forged diplomatic clearance, stealth systems running hot. The ship didn't dock. We sent in a 6-man team on a ghost shuttle. I was on point. Target, Sen Orion, Velari by birth. Transmuted through gene therapy to look like a pentar, worked as a council liaison, spoke 10 languages, gave speeches on peace, balance, and unity, smiled for cameras. He was also one of the architects behind the purge. The station was a mess of scent, light, and noise, a floating bazaar of interspecies chaos. The perfect place to hide a goddamn mass murderer. We moved through it like blood cells in a clogged artery. Quiet, deliberate, watching for the signs. Orion lived in a high tower suite overlooking the trade sector. It had no guards, no guns, just sensors. Confidence. We bypassed them in 6 minutes. When we entered, he was having tea, not exaggerating. Actual tea. He looked at us, set the cup down, and smiled like a priest welcoming mourners. "I was wondering when you'd come." I raised my weapon. "Don't move." He didn't. "You know who I am," he said, calm as glass. "I know what you are." He nodded. "A realist." That was the moment I wanted to shoot him. Right there. No speeches, no drama, just a bullet. But Stone wanted him alive. Said intel from a founder was worth more than another corpse. So we restrained him, bound his arms, cloaked his face, and walked him out through the chaos of Virex like we were escorting a drunk relative home. The council didn't notice. Or if they did, they didn't stop us. We got him back to the ship, sealed him in an interrogation pod, built to contain energy forms and break telepaths. This thing had been designed for worse than Volari. And that's what he was, beneath the skin. A Volari hybrid. Clean, composed, cultured, and absolutely poisonous. I was in the room when Stone questioned him. You planned the purge. Yes. You knew 10 million would die. They had to. Stone's jaw flexed. He didn't blink. Why? Orion tilted his head. You are the fire in a dry forest, the violence in potential. Every species that has reached your level has collapsed under the weight of its emotion. You're simply accelerating entropy. And that gave you the right to commit genocide? It gave us the duty. He smiled again. Calm, measured. You don't understand. You never have. It wasn't just about Earth. It was a trial, a signal to the others, a test to see how far humanity had truly evolved. I stepped forward. And what did you find out? He looked me in the eye. That you are far worse than we imagined. We should have killed him. Right there. But he said one more thing before we shut the chamber down. You've started something you cannot contain. The sigil was fractured, divided. We disagreed on how to proceed, but now you've unified them. Stone frowned. What do you mean? You didn't just retaliate. You didn't just defend. You erased. You showed the galaxy what humanity is capable of when pushed. He leaned forward. The glass between us shimmered. Now they're coming. We left him there, hooked into the neural siphon, draining every thought, every file, every coded phrase buried in his DNA. It would take time, but we'd get it. The problem was what came next. 1 week later, 3 Earth colonies went dark. No comms, no emergency beacons, no survivors. Ships sent to investigate never returned. The Council released a statement condemning all forms of extremist retaliation, careful not to name us, but clear enough. The galaxy was turning. They didn't see us as victims anymore. They saw us as a threat, a virus. I sat in the observation deck that night, watching the distant burn of a red giant on the horizon. Davis joined me. He hadn't said much since Keldor 3. You think we went too far? He asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. I think the line we crossed was already covered in our people's blood. He nodded. But what now? Now we go deeper. We find the heart. We cut it out. Orion's mind was a fortress, one built over centuries of Volari programming and cold doctrine. But Thanatos wasn't just a weapon. It was also a key, a lockpick designed to unravel alien code, memory, even identity. He screamed for 46 hours. We didn't watch the whole thing. Some couldn't stomach it. Others pretended to be busy with reports or diagnostics. But I watched every frame. Because I needed to. Because I wanted to. He was there when my brother died. Not physically, but spiritually. He was one of the architects, one of the voices that called the purge necessary. So I stared while the AI dug into his brain, pulling out fragments like splinters from rotting wood. At first it was names, networks, secure locations, places we'd never even heard of. Then it got worse. The sigil of purity wasn't new. They'd existed for thousands of years, before the Council, before warp drives, before galactic treaties and diplomacy, back when space travel was suicidal and information moved slower than light. They weren't just an extremist cult. They were something deeper, something old. They called themselves the First Balance. Long before humans ever carved a wheel, the founders of the sigil were watching the stars. Their doctrine was simple. Chaos is the default state of the cosmos. Only order brings survival. But their definition of order wasn't peace. It was sterilization, uniformity, emotional extinction. Anything that brought chaos, growth, passion, creativity, had to be controlled or destroyed. And when they discovered Earth, loud, impulsive, brilliant Earth, they saw something ancient, something they thought they had erased long ago, the infection. That's what they called us in their archives. We weren't just a young species. We were a reminder of what they'd failed to destroy before. The coordinates came from Orion's mind. One system, redacted from all official maps, sealed off by the Council under the title Forbidden Space. Civilian access was illegal. Military access? Denied. We didn't ask for permission. We flew in under blackout stealth, no lights, no trails, every system scrubbed of ID signatures. The moment we breached that space, everything changed. The stars looked wrong, not in position but in feeling. Too still, too quiet, like they were waiting for us to scream. The planet was called Virel Tan. No atmosphere, no life signs, but a structure, buried beneath its surface, pulsed with energy our sensors couldn't define. Not Valari, not any known race. This wasn't just another lab, it was the source. We landed on the outer crust, drilling through 6 kilometers of dead rock before we hit metal. Smooth, black metal. Perfect, seamless, no markings, no seams. Thanatos interfaced with it instantly. The door opened like it had been waiting. Inside was lightless, not dark. Lightless. As if the space itself refused to reflect. Even our torches seemed to choke under the pressure. Walls absorbed light, sound, even thought. We moved in a 5-man wedge, tight, controlled, hearts pounding. The first chamber was a vault, 1,000 data cores lined in circles, floating in anti-grav suspension. No screens, no access ports, just rows of raw knowledge stored in quantum resonance. Thanatos cracked one in 7 seconds. And what we saw was Earth. Not just images, footage of ancient Earth, of our oceans, our fires, our evolution, from 10,000 years ago. The sigil had been watching us long before we knew how to speak. The truth hit us like a bullet in the gut. We weren't just targets of the purge, we were the only survivors of the last one. The sigil had done this before. To others. To a species just like us, passionate, unstable, fast evolving. They wiped them out, completely, left nothing, and somehow one thread survived. Earth. That's why the purge wasn't immediate. That's why the Valari studied us for decades before they struck. They didn't want to destroy us. Not right away. They wanted to understand what they missed last time, what went wrong, why Earth still burned. We pushed deeper into the facility. The second chamber held preserved artifacts, bones, skulls, weapons, all from species long erased from the galactic map. One looked almost human, 2 arms, upright spine, 5 fingers, and a hole burned through the skull. Davis stared at it too long. "They've done this forever," he said. "We're not the first." Stone touched the glass around it. "We'll be the last." The final room was a throne. Not a seat, a platform, covered in veins of living light. At its center was a single being, or what was left of one. It was suspended in some kind of stasis, neither dead nor awake, thin, ancient, bones like crystal, eyes sealed shut. It was a founder, not just of the sigil, of the entire doctrine, the architect of erasure, the first purifier, and it was still alive. We had a choice. We could kill it, destroy the whole place, bury the truth, or we could wake it up. Stone turned to us. We wake it. We learn what it knows. Every secret, every system. We end this for good. No one spoke. No one objected, because we were too far gone for mercy. Thanatos touched the core with a pulse of cold white light. The being opened its eyes. There was no glow, no scream, no explosion, Just thought. All of us heard it. "You are not supposed to exist," Stone stepped forward. "And yet we do." The being studied us, eyes like collapsed stars. "You carry the infection, emotion, resistance, will. It must be extinguished." I raised my rifle. "You failed." It looked at me. "No, we delayed, but you are the reckoning, the consequence of mercy." Stone's jaw tightened. "What are you?" The being paused. "I am the one who survived your kind before. I was made to stop you, and now I will become your end once more." Stone didn't flinch. "No." He raised his hand. And Thanatos surged. The chamber cracked. The walls groaned. The cores burned. The being screamed, not in sound, but through the air, through the blood, through the bones. And then silence. Dust. Ash. Gone. We detonated the facility, left nothing. As we ascended back to orbit, we didn't speak. Not until we cleared the dead zone and saw the stars again. Then Davis looked at me and said, "If that was just one of them, how many more are out there?" Back aboard, we ran the final files Thanatos recovered. There were coordinates, thousands of them, every system ever touched by the sigil. Some erased, some still infected, some preparing to strike. The galaxy wasn't watching anymore. It was arming itself, and Earth? We were the lit match in a room full of gas. Stone stood before us. "We now know the truth. The galaxy isn't peaceful. It's controlled. By fear, by silence, by erasure." He looked each of us in the eyes. "The war didn't start with Earth," he paused. "But it'll damn sure end with us. The Council called it a fracture event. 14 systems, all former Valari allies, went dark within 72 hours. Not from our doing. We hadn't touched a single one. This time it was them. The sigil of purity had activated sleeper cells across the galaxy. Saboteurs, governors, civilian leaders, all turned in one synchronized burst of violence. One colony's atmosphere was vented. Another had its population sedated, then burned alive in their homes. A trade world's central AI was corrupted and turned on its creators, slicing through millions before crashing the orbital defenses into the surface. This wasn't punishment. This was a message. "You let them live, now you all burn." The Council panicked. They issued containment protocols, which really just meant they ran, closed borders, recalled diplomats, cut off communications. The same council that had demanded answers after the Valari erasure suddenly had none of their own. They tried to pretend it wasn't a war. But you can't hide fire with silence. Earth responded in kind. The Templar Division, our unit, wasn't secret anymore. We weren't ghosts now. We were front line. And they unleashed us. They gave us a directive so clear it might as well have been carved in blood. Erase the sigil before they erase us. First target, Crixal 5, a neutral zone. Tech hub. Commerce mecca, a place that prided itself on diplomacy and ideological inclusivity. Turns out it was also a command nexus for the sigil's internal communication systems. A disguised black site hidden in the underlayers of the main city. Invisible unless you knew where to look. We didn't just look. We ripped it open. We dropped in from low orbit, silent, no warning, no theatrics. The city below was a maze of neon and smug arrogance, so proud of their independence. So convinced they were above the war, until we came through their walls like fire through silk. The black site was buried 16 stories under the central tower. It wasn't guarded by soldiers. It was guarded by civilians. Innocent tech workers, janitors, doctors, all unknowingly used as human shields. They thought we wouldn't shoot. We did. Not because we wanted to, because we had to. Sigil doctrine doesn't make mistakes. If someone's near it, they're part of it, whether they know it or not. Every second we hesitated, they were alerting someone else, wiping files, sending orders. So we moved fast, cleared the upper floors with flash burns and neural jammers, breached the core chamber, found the uplink device tied into the planet's civilian infrastructure, and waiting next to it, a man, alone, arms open, no fear. "You can't stop it," he said. Stone didn't blink. "We already did." Then we cut the uplink. What we pulled from the system changed everything. The sigil wasn't just operating out of old systems and hidden cults. They had representation inside the council. Verified, proven. 4 sitting members, 1 former chair, dozens of aides, staff, contractors, all connected to the network. It wasn't a conspiracy theory anymore. It was a damn blueprint. When we sent the data back to Earth, it leaked. Intentionally? Accidentally? Didn't matter. The galaxy saw it. And that's when everything caught fire. Systems started splitting. Some species declared neutrality. Again, but this time it didn't mean anything. Because neutral now meant suspected. Others aligned with Earth. Not out of loyalty, but fear. Because if they didn't, they knew what came next. And then there were those who chose the sigil. That was the worst part. They didn't hide it anymore. They wore the spiral sigil in public, painted it on their ships, claimed purity, order, salvation through control, and they didn't just talk, they struck. Earth's outer colonies came under attack, one by one, not from fleets, from inside. Whole communities thought loyal turned overnight, neighborhoods gassed, spaceports sabotaged, water supplies laced with nerve code that liquefied bone. The sigil had been planting roots for decades, and now they were blooming. We were pulled back to Earth, not for rest, for the directive shift. The president wasn't a politician anymore. She wasn't making speeches, giving press conferences. She wore a black uniform, stood in front of a war map, and spoke like a general. "This isn't ideological," she said. "This isn't peace versus war. This is survival." She looked at us, the original 34. "You saw what's out there. You know what they've done. So I'm giving you full authority. You find them. You erase them. No oversight. No restrictions." She stepped closer. "If the galaxy wants to know who we are now, show them." We became symbols again. But not of hope, of fear. The black ship, once hidden, now flew with its own warning signal, a pulse that said only one thing: "We are coming." And the galaxy? It started whispering our name again, not with awe, but with terror. Our next target wasn't a lab, it was a world. Myrex 9, an archive planet, vault world, old, dusty, left untouched for centuries, used only by historians and data preservationists. At least, that's what we thought. When we arrived, there was no resistance, just libraries, towering, crumbling, still humming with quiet knowledge. And deep inside, a single chamber, unmarked, ancient. Stone, Davis, and I entered together. Inside was a message, from Earth, ancient Earth, from a time before the sigil even knew our name. It was in binary, crude, primitive, but clear. "To any who find this, we are not chaos. We are not infection. We are choice. You will not erase us. We will become your extinction." Stone looked at me. "You think this is real?" I nodded. My throat felt like glass. "It's a promise." Then the attack came. Fleet signatures. 4 of them. No identification, no diplomacy. They opened fire before we could even respond. Our ship took 3 hits in 30 seconds. Shields shredded, engine failing. This wasn't random. They'd been waiting for us. We crashed. Surface side, Myrex 9. No backup, no evac window, just us. 34 soldiers, 1 broken ship, and an army of zealots descending through the clouds. They wanted to finish what the Valari started, only this time we were ready. Stone took command instantly. Spread the men, defensive perimeter, Gravity cannons recalibrated for planetary use. Anti-cloak mines buried along the ridges. Davis handed me a rifle and said, "This is what it's always been, Mason." "What?" "Not a war between races, or species, or governments." He loaded a mag. "It's a war between those who want control." He looked out at the horizon, burning, shifting with incoming ships. "And those who will burn the universe before being tamed." They landed hard. Metal screamed. Dust surged. Soldiers in polished armor marched like prophets. They expected an execution. They got a massacre. We tore through them. Not because we were better, but because we wanted it more. They fought with belief, doctrine, precision. We fought with rage, memory, fire. When their front lines buckled, they sent in the cleansers, elite units, genetic hybrids, fast, cold, silent. I watched one tear through 4 men before I got a shot off. Put a round through its head. Watched its face twitch, then smile. "I see you," it whispered. Then it exploded. They were programmed to self-terminate. No prisoners, no data, no evidence. But we didn't need evidence. We had purpose. By nightfall, it was over. The field was ash. Our suits covered in blood. The ship half melted. Comms fried. But we were alive. Every single one of us. Stone stood atop the ridge and stared at the wreckage. Then he looked up. At the stars. At the systems still watching, still waiting. Then he said the words none of us would forget. "They want to know what happens when you push humanity too far." He lit a flare. Watched it burn red in the night. "Let's show them." The flare still burned red as the stars blinked above us, distant and uncaring. We stood around the wreckage of the black ship, half buried in the scorched rock of Myrex 9. Smoke curled from the engines. Blood stained the dirt. The bodies of the Sigil strike team were nothing but torn armor and burnt flesh. But we were still standing. Stone paced slowly along the ridge, rifle slung behind his back, eyes locked on the northern sky like he could see beyond it. "We're not done," he said. "This wasn't the final move." Davis leaned against a chunk of twisted hull, breathing through a cracked mask. "They threw a fleet at us. What the hell's next?" Stone turned to us. His voice was flat, final. "Their heart." The AI pulled the last data fragments from the Myrex archive before we left. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't a base. It was something older. A construct buried in a gravity well so deep that no probe had ever returned from it. A place the Council labeled unnavigable. Not because it was unreachable, but because it was forbidden. They called it Kuldrith's Maw, a dead zone surrounded by collapsed stars and fractured time. Even the most advanced species refused to chart it. Myths said time broke there. Ships returned twisted. Crews came back screaming, or didn't come back at all. The Sigil had built their core inside it. Of course they had. Because what better place to hide a god than in hell? It took us 6 days to repair the black ship enough to fly. 6 days of scavenging, welding, sleeping in turns, guarding the ridge. We had no backup, no reinforcements. Earth was under siege, communications blacked out, colonies falling silent. But we had one shot. The AI had plotted a path. Not through the maw, into it. It calculated a 3-minute window where the gravitational tides would settle. Enough time to dive, enough time to die. The crew didn't question it, not even once. On the 7th day, we launched. The ship groaned, the hull screamed, but it flew. We left Myrex 9 burning behind us and punched into deep space, every light on the console red, every sensor jammed by static and radiation. And ahead? Darkness. Kuldrith's Maw didn't look like a place. It looked like a wound, a tear in space where light went to die. No stars. No shape, just a swirling black void lined with flickers of distorted gravity, like reality had shattered and kept trying to repair itself. The AI spoke once. "Entering maw." Then everything went quiet. Time didn't work inside. Seconds bled into hours. Thoughts came before actions. I remember blinking and seeing myself already standing across the room. I heard Stone's voice 5 seconds before he spoke. And the memories? They weren't mine. I saw flashes of people I didn't know, of battles we hadn't fought, of a world burning that looked like Earth but wasn't. The maw wasn't just a void, it was a mirror. One that showed you every version of what could have been, and what would be if you failed. I saw my brother again. He looked at me from a field of ash. "You know they'll never stop," he said. And then, he vanished. We punched through the last layer with 30 seconds to spare. The ship came out the other side, shaking, scarred, but whole. And in front of us, the core. It wasn't a station, it was a machine, planet-sized, rotating in perfect silence. Dozens of rings spinning through each other, held together by energy fields too complex to map. At the center was a single glowing eye. Not a real one, but something older. A construct. An intelligence. The mind. Stone stood at the viewport, jaw clenched. "Drop us in." We hit the outer shell fast and hard, cutting through magnetic defenses with Thanatos' code. It wasn't easy. They adapted. Their AI learned. Their firewalls morphed. But Thanatos was built for this. It wasn't just code. It was vengeance. We breached into the internal core chamber. Steel and silence. No guards, no guns, just voices. Ours, coming from everywhere. I heard my brother. Davis heard his daughter. Stone heard his son. They spoke like ghosts, like dreams. "You could have saved us. You waited too long. You became what you hated." The walls pulsed. The lights shifted. This wasn't defense. It was psychological warfare. The sigil wasn't trying to stop us. It was trying to break us. We pressed on. Room by room, corridor by corridor. The ship couldn't land inside. This had to be done on foot. No maps, no directions. Just instinct and pain. Every level showed us them. The purges. Thousands of them. Not just Earth. Not just Valari. Dozens of species erased one by one. Children crying. Cities burning. Screams echoing through clean white halls. It was all recorded, archived, analyzed. They weren't ashamed. They were proud. We reached the core interface at hour 11. A single chamber. Circular. No doors. Just a sphere hovering in the center, pulsating with raw memory. The mind. The intelligence that had guided the sigil since before history. It spoke without sound. We all heard it. "You are error." Stone stepped forward. "We're humanity." "You are the last infection. You will be cleansed." I raised my weapon. "So try." The room didn't shake. It pulsed. And then the air cracked. Figures appeared. Not solid. Simulations. Holograms. Us. Copies of every Templar in the room. Same suits. Same weapons. Same scars. The mind was creating perfect replications. It wanted us to fight ourselves. And we did. Chaos erupted in the chamber. I shot my own face, watched it bleed light. Davis tackled his copy and stabbed it in the throat with a combat blade. Stone moved like a machine, snapping spines and firing at point blank. It wasn't just a fight, it was a test. They wanted to see if we'd hesitate, if we'd flinch. We didn't, because we stopped being human the day they killed ours. One by one, the copies fell. The mind began to fracture. Its voice split into static. It begged, in its way, "You are disorder. You are fire. You will burn the galaxy." Stone stepped onto the platform. "We were never the problem." He placed the Thanatos core against the interface. "You were." The mind screamed, not with sound, with memory. It sent out every purge, every erased child, every fallen world, every voice it had silenced, all of them, at once, trying to drown us, trying to bury us under its guilt. But guilt doesn't work on the broken. We are already buried. The Thanatos payload detonated. No fire. No noise, just light. The core split. Rings crumbled. The machine cracked like an egg. And for the first time in recorded history, the sigil went silent. We sprinted back to the evac point as the structure collapsed behind us. Fires tore through the air. Reality trembled. The maw itself began to close, like the universe was sealing the wound. We didn't stop. We didn't look back. We boarded the ship with 15 seconds to spare and punched the jump drive. Behind us, the sigil's heart died screaming. When we emerged on the other side, near Jupiter's orbit, the Earth was still there. Damaged, besieged, fighting, but still alive. And now? Free. Stone gathered us in the hangar, battered, bleeding, changed. He looked at us, all of us. The 34 who became more than soldiers, more than ghosts, symbols. And he said finally, "They thought they could erase us." He looked toward Earth. "They just made us permanent." We didn't land on Earth right away, didn't even ask permission. After Keldrith's maw, we drifted in orbit for 2 days, cloaked, lights dim, silent, not because we were hiding, but because none of us were ready to see it again. Not after what we'd done. Not after who we'd become. Stone spent most of the time in the ops room, staring at the files Thanatos recovered during the mine's death spiral. Data logs, strategic outlines, future targets. The sigil hadn't been planning just Earth. They were preparing for a cleansing event, galaxy-wide. 10,000 years in the making. If we hadn't gone into the maw when we did, there wouldn't have been a planet left to return to. When we finally touched down at New Geneva Base, it wasn't to cheers. No flags. No cameras, no politicians, just a wall of cold silence and men with rifles, not aimed, but ready. The president was waiting on the tarmac. Same black uniform, same steel in her eyes. Stone walked toward her. She didn't speak. She just nodded once, then looked at all of us. "You did what no one else could." Then softer, with the edge of hesitation. "Did we win?" Stone didn't answer, because we didn't know yet. The world we returned to wasn't the one we left. Cities still stood. Ships still flew. But the soul of Earth had changed. There were whispers in every alley, fear in every handshake, not fear of the sigil, fear of us, because we had done the unthinkable. We'd erased a civilization. Then we erased the order behind it. And in doing so, we'd proved the worst thing about humanity true. That when we're pushed far enough, we'll break everything to survive. Davis went home to silence. He stood outside the house where his daughter used to live, where her bedroom used to smell like crayons and cheap perfume. The neighbors didn't wave. His mailbox was full of unopened letters. Half were thank you notes. The other half? Death threats. He didn't open any of them. 2 others from the crew were detained. One had leaked sigil names to off-world militias. Thought he was doing the right thing. Killed 17 civilians by mistake. The other had signed a deal with a weapons manufacturer. Gave them parts of Thanatos in exchange for a payout. He never made it to trial. We buried him in a hole with no name. Because even among monsters, some lines don't get crossed. I tried to see Marla, my brother's wife. She lived in a recovery compound on the outskirts of what's left of New York, what's now called Sector 12. Quiet, guarded, protected from the news, the noise, the reality. I stood at the gate for an hour before she came out. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just looked at me. "You did it?" she said. I nodded. "We did." She hesitated. then asked the question that had haunted me since the maw. Was it worth it? I didn't know how to answer, so I just said the truth. They'll never do it again. She stared at me, then walked away. Didn't say another word. The council collapsed. What remained of it, anyway? After the core's destruction, the leaked data from Thanatos reached every system, every hidden purge, every complicit vote. Entire species turned on their representatives. Worlds burned in retaliation. 100 years of diplomacy reduced to blood and smoke. Some tried to form a new alliance. Earth didn't join. Not this time. Stone called one final meeting in the ship, the Black Ship, now permanently grounded and buried beneath the Titan ice, hidden from history. We stood around the central table, worn faces, rough voices, hands that would never be clean again. "We finished the job," he said. Davis lit a cigarette, not allowed on base. No one stopped him. "But it doesn't feel finished," he muttered. Stone nodded. "No, because the truth is this war never ends. Not really. The sigil was just one hand choking the throat of freedom. There are others. Always will be." He looked around. "I'm not asking you to fight again." Pause. "But I'm asking you not to forget. What we saw, what we learned, and what we had to become." Silence. Then I asked the question hanging in all our throats. "What are we now?" Stone answered without blinking. "We're the warning." They made a monument a year later, not on Earth, but in orbit. A ring of steel and scorched black glass, carved from the wreckage of ships that tried to kill us. It didn't list names, didn't have a speech. It just had one phrase etched in the center for all species to read when they passed. 10 million gone. One answer given. Never again. Over time, stories spread. Some said the Black Ship still flew in the shadows, unseen, protecting Earth from what the stars might send next. Others said it burned up in a final mission, taking the last of the sigil worlds with it. The truth? Only a few of us knew. And we weren't telling? I live alone now. Off-grid. Somewhere cold. I don't dream much anymore. But sometimes I see them. The purged, the erased, the forgotten, and sometimes I see my brother. He never says anything. Just stands there, hands in his jacket pockets, that same crooked smile he always had when we were kids. Sometimes he nods. Sometimes he turns his back. Sometimes I wake up with blood on my hands and don't know if it's mine. But I never apologize. Because if it happened again, if someone tried to erase us again, I'd do it all over, and worse, because we don't forgive. Not anymore. Epilogue. 20 years later, a new ship enters Sol space. No weapons, no fleet, just a single messenger. She lands in silence and requests only one thing: to speak to the ones who ended the sigil. She carries a warning. Another order has awakened. Not like the sigil, not about purity or control, but about vengeance. They saw what Earth did, she says, and they want to become what you are. Stone's gone now, Davis too. Most of the 34 are either dead, missing, or faded into myth, but someone has to answer. So I open the vault, reactivate the systems, and I whisper into the dark. You want to see what Earth really is? I load my weapon, feel the hum in my chest. Then come see.